Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Burgh Breakdown. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, and we got a lot of positives to talk about today. A little bit of negatives because we are going to go a little Pittsburgh Pirates heavy on this Tuesday, and, well, they've fallen behind in the NL wildcard picture, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and that's where we want to kick things off because Pirates got some encouraging news on Monday. Not just that Oneil Cruz is coming off the 60-day injured list, and he should be returning potentially tonight to the lineup, which helps them defensively, which helps them offensively, which helps them against left-handed pitching. It's all around a good thing that they're getting Oneil Cruz back. But now they're getting some positive news on Konnor Griffin. The Pittsburgh Pirates 20-year-old phenom has been out since July 5th after an injury to his left hand that he sustained in the series against the Washington Nationals, a series that he had really started to take over and show what he could be at his best, right? He took that entire series and turned it on its head, offensively, defensively, in every aspect of the game, base running. I mean, he stole home in that series. He started to show how he could be a game breaker for the Pittsburgh Pirates and that he was ready to take his game to the next level. The only issue is he suffered that hand injury and has been out for the past 6 weeks. Well, we got an update on his status on Monday from Pittsburgh Pirates Senior Director of Sports Medicine, Todd Tomczyk, who said Griffin is no longer wearing a splint, which that is according to plan. He was supposed to wear a splint for 6 weeks. It's been about 6 weeks. So Griffin is no longer in a splint, but not only that, Tomczyk said that he is actually ahead of schedule and, in fact, in line for a return on September 4th whenever he reaches that 60-day minimum on the injured list. So we could be in a situation where the Pittsburgh Pirates not only get back Oneil Cruz as early as tonight, but in just over 2 weeks, they could be getting their phenom shortstop back into the lineup. This is massive news for the Pittsburgh Pirates because, let's face it, the offense has gone a bit cold. And I know it's weird to say that considering they've scored, 8+ runs, 7+ runs 3 times since last Thursday. But despite those spurts of success and glimpses of what we saw earlier in the season, the overall offense has struggled since the All-Star break. They're tied for 16th in runs scored. And if this was last year, and I told you that over a month-long span, the Pittsburgh Pirates were middle of the pack offensively, you would have been jumping for joy. But the standard has been elevated because of what they did early in this season. The Pirates were among the top 5 offenses in all of baseball before the All-Star break. Since then, they've struggled, and in part due to these injuries. I mean, no team is going to be able to sustain 4 to 5 injuries to everyday players and still be able to maintain that type of offensive success. And guys have stepped up in the meantime, as Merlin Valdez went initially red hot, then ice cold, and is starting to get back to that red hot standard that he said earlier. But guys like Nick York have stepped up at times when need be. He did so on Sunday. He had a couple big hits on Monday night in a losing effort, but still showing up and having a huge impact on the game. Jake Mangum has been hitting over 300 since Oneil Cruz went down. So players have stepped up, but still the offense is lacking. I mean, Cruz has been out for over a month. Griffin has been out for 6+ weeks. They lost Spencer Horwitz for an extended period of time. They've been without Ryan O'Hearn for an extended period of time. Endy Rodriguez, who is the best hitting option at the catcher position this season, has been on the shelf on and off over the past month. But it'll be nice to get Konnor Griffin back. Between him and Cruz coming back, that should elevate your offense and honestly put it back into the top 10 in all of MLB. That lineup with Cruz and with Griffin back, even with O'Hearn on the shelf, even with Endy on the shelf, should be able to find the success that it had earlier in the season. And I think a large part of that is getting Konnor Griffin back. I see Konnor Griffin, when this team is at full strength, as one of the Pirates' top 3 hitting options, if not their best hitting option. I mean, he was hitting .313 with 2 home runs and 21 stolen bases in 20 games played before going down with this left hand injury. He is, in my opinion, the best fielder on the Pittsburgh Pirates. And to kind of wrap this into a nice little bow, he hits really well against lefties. 298 batting average and a 777 OPS against lefties this year, an area in which the Pirates have struggled all season long. So they need guys that are going to be able to hit both lefties and righties. Griffin can do that. And again, I'll bring it around to this. Oneil Cruz can do that too. So it is great news that Konnor Griffin is well on his way to a return, something that some people questioned whether or not would actually happen this season. But to get confirmation that it should happen, and it should happen sooner rather than later, is nothing but positive news for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And here's the thing. They need to make sure when he gets back that they're still in this playoff race. They're in it right now, but they're hanging on by a thread. One bad week, and it's going to feel like it's curtains for the Pittsburgh Pirates. As of right now, they are 6.5 games back in the wild card race. Several teams that they need to jump between now and then to get into a playoff spot, but they have a huge road trip on deck that's going to really tell the story of what September is going to be for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Is it going to be a month where they're looking to make that comeback, or is it going to be a month that they're just looking to finish with a respectable record? Because if you look at the road trip that's on deck, at the Dodgers, at San Diego, and at St. Louis, the Dodgers have scuffled a little bit. They look human, at least as of right now. So that's an opportunity to, at the very least, not get swept if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates. But more importantly, San Diego and St. Louis, 2 teams that you're looking up at in the standings, and 2 teams that if you want to play postseason baseball, you're going to need to track down. So those are huge series coming up. They won't have Griffin before then, but they will have Oneil Cruz. And I've said it before on this show. The target that I'm looking for the Pittsburgh Pirates before September hits in a couple of weeks, 4 games back. They need to catch 2.5 games back from the top wild card teams. I think that is doable. I think that is not too much to ask. I think they have a shot at that, especially with the fact that they're getting reinforcements on the offensive side of things. Now, offense is great, and getting the offense back to a top level, a peak level, will go a long way in getting them back into this playoff race. But at the end of the day, they need the rotation to step up more than it has. And specifically, they need Carmen Mlodzinski to be what he expects of himself, which is a good 4th, 5th starter at this level. Carmen Mlodzinski got what he wanted. A couple weeks back, the injury to Mitch Keller opened an opportunity, opened a door for Carmen Mlodzinski to get back in the rotation, something that he was very vocal about, that he wanted to have happen. Not somebody to get injured, but he wanted to be back in the rotation. He never wanted to go to the bullpen. It wasn't, hey, I'll do what's best for the team. It's, well, if you're going to send me back to the bullpen, I need to take some time and evaluate my options here with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And eventually he did go back to the bullpen, and he was great in the bullpen. And now the door opens, the opportunity arises for him to get back in the starting rotation, and it's been ugly, to say the least. 3 starts since Mlodzinski has rejoined the rotation. 0-3 record, 8 1/3 innings pitched, 13 earned runs, which is good for a 14.04 ERA. over, again, 3 starts. He hasn't gone past 3 innings in any of his starts since rejoining the rotation, and he's given up at least 4 runs in every single start. I was in the building on Monday night for his latest start, and it was ugly. 3 innings, 4 earned runs on 8 hits, including a home run given up to Kevin McGonigal of the Detroit Tigers. They were crushing the ball. Even when he was getting lineouts, there were several that were just absolutely lasered into the outfield. I mean, not a lot of soft contact at all on Carmen Mlodzinski. They were just hitting it every which way. And that was kind of the book on Carmen Mlodzinski early in the season. The only difference was, one, he was keeping it in the ballpark more often than he has since rejoining the rotation. And two, it was finding his outfielders. It was finding all of his fielders. There was a lot of hard contact, but it was directly into the hands of the Pirates defense. That hasn't happened since he rejoined the rotation. That, I don't want to call it luck, because it's not all luck. Some of that is according to plan, but a lot of hard contact on Carmen Mlodzinski. In fact, 3 exit velocities over 100 miles an hour in just 3 innings pitched, and several others above 85 to 90 miles per hour. He got shelled on Monday night, and that's been the story since he rejoined the Pirates starting rotation. The Pirates can't come back with him like this. You know, we talked in that first segment about Konnor Griffin and how big his return would be for the Pirates lineup, the return of O'Neal Cruz and how big that is going to be for the Pirates lineup. And both of them are helping the Pirates defensively in a major way as well when they return. But you need the starting pitching to step up. The bullpen's in a decent spot. You could have a lot more faith in this Pirates bullpen than you had previously, but the starting rotation has a lot of question marks. And if Carmen Mlodzinski continues the way that he's been continuing, I don't know if there's a path back for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They don't really have many options to replace him and put him back in the bullpen. I mean, you look at the guys that it could be, and there's no real great options, especially compared to Carmen Mlodzinski, even at his current play. Wilber Dotel hasn't gone more than 4 innings pitched since making his MLB debut earlier this season, and he only got to 4 innings pitched once, and that was a long time ago. Christian Curtis, who had 1 promising start out of the All-Star break, is just returning from an injury. Actually, I don't think he started that game. I think that was a opener into Christian Curtis, but he was impressive nonetheless against the Guardians. He just returned from injury and, again, only has 1 game of MLB experience. And then there's Hunter Barco, who I think a lot of people were expecting to step up and potentially be an option at this point in the season for the starting rotation, but he just continues to get hit hard every opportunity that he's given at the MLB level. Sunday against the Boston Red Sox was no different, giving up a 3-run home run in that game. So you look at the rotation, you understand that they are struggling, and they have been struggling since the MLB All-Star break. Yes, there have been a couple of instances where the rotation and starters have been able to pitch and put together solid starts. I mean, Jared Jones had a gutsy start over the weekend, but more often than not, since the All-Star break, he has been touched up pretty well. Paul Skeens is still trying to figure out whatever is going on with Paul Skeens. Bubba Chandler has been a little bit more consistent of late, and Braxton Ashcraft, who had struggled coming out of the All-Star break, is coming off of a stellar performance against the Miami Marlins. Actually, the best pitching performance we've seen in quite some time from a Pittsburgh Pirates starter. Can he build off of that? And can he continue to be that dominant shutdown force that he had been most of the first half and in that game against the Marlins? That's going to be huge, but they need Mlodzinski to step up. You need to not have his starts essentially become a bullpen day, because as we've seen, the Pirates sometimes are going to need to rely on the bullpen to have an actual bullpen day. Lake Bacher doing that on Sunday with Hunter Barco, and the ability to get a huge series win because those guys are able to shut down, to a certain extent, the Boston Red Sox. You can't have that followed up with Carmen Mlodzinski going only 3 innings, where you have to rely on Isaac Mattson to give you multiple innings, where you have to rely on Johan Ramirez, who just came back from paternity leave, to go multiple innings. He was unable to do so. He could only go 1, but I'm sure the plan was for him to go at least 2, maybe even push him to 3, considering where the Pirates were at in that game. But when I look at Mlodzinski, if you're going to make that statement, all those months ago when Jared Jones returned and you were the one that was the odd man out and you stepped away from the team for a day or two and said that you need to evaluate your options, you need to speak with your family, speak with your agent before going back to the bullpen, then when you're given the chance, you need to back it up. And to this point, he hasn't. So the pressure is on in a big way for Carmen Mlodzinski. And unfortunately for the Pirates, it's in a situation where they really have nowhere else to turn. Let's finish things off talking a little bit of Pittsburgh Steelers as they enter week 2 of the 2026 NFL preseason, taking on the New York Football Jets a little bit later this week at Acrisure Stadium. But I do want to take this back to last week. There was a bit of news that didn't get to talk about on the show last week that I'm really excited about. And I was very, very excited when I saw the news that the Pittsburgh Steelers had re-signed inside linebacker Elandon Roberts to a 1-year deal. And if that name sounds familiar and you're more of a casual fan, it's a good thing that you've heard of him before, because he made an impact when he was with the Steelers the last time from 2023 to 2024. He is not a quiet player at the inside linebacker position. He's physical. He talks the talk and he walks the walk in a lot of ways as well. So I'm personally very excited that Elandon Roberts is back with the Steelers organization. He left last year in free agency, going over to the Las Vegas Raiders, where he played under current Steelers defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. So a lot of familiarity with the defensive scheme. He should be able to slot right back in and be able to kind of understand what Patrick Graham wants from him in that position. So that should be a positive for Elandon Roberts. Not only that, he's returning to a very familiar linebacker room. I mean, the last time he was in Pittsburgh, Peyton Wilson was a rookie. Patrick Queen was in his first year with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Cole Holcomb was still with the organization. So he's returning to a familiar room too. So it should be a situation where he just slides right back in, and there shouldn't be too many growing pains for Elandon Roberts. And in Roberts, the Steelers are getting an elite run stopper. Like, that's the book on Elandon Roberts. How often do we hear Cam Hayward say, for our defense, and for really every defense in the league, it starts with stopping the run. But Cam Hayward preaches that every single week. Well, Elandon Roberts is going to help you in a huge way. This is I would call him the epitome of a downhill defender. Brings a lot more physicality to the middle of that defense. Not that we haven't seen Patrick Queen be physical. Not that we haven't seen Peyton Wilson be physical. But in the run game specifically, Elandon Roberts takes it to a completely different level. And we're seeing it on display pretty early in his second go-around with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This from Penn Live's Nick Farabaugh a couple days ago on Sunday, saying, quote, E-Rob laid a few big hits, and that seemed to stoke some tensions. The offense finally had enough and fought back. It seems the new guy lit a fire in the practice. Let's not forget, a big storyline this entire training camp has been how the Pittsburgh Steelers have been focusing less on physicality in practice and more on details in practice. 1, 2, 3 at most days of Elandon Roberts, and that is flipped on its head. And all of a sudden, the physicality is there. And all of a sudden, the training camp fights are there. And it wasn't just one fight. There were a couple fights on Sunday, and Elandon Roberts and his physicality seemed to be at the center of it all. So I'm excited to have that guy back on the Steelers defense. I'm excited to have the guy who I believe it was against the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. It was 3rd and goal at the 1-yard line, who was able to dive across the line, punch the ball out of the running back's hands, unable to come away with it. And they did eventually score, I believe, on 4th down, but still a guy who in that moment made a play to keep the Steelers' hopes alive. A guy who in those goal line situations is not afraid to go in there and light somebody up. A guy who is going to be able to help an already solid run defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers were 13th in the NFL last year in run defense, which is not bad. It's certainly not where you want to be. You want to be a top 5 unit in every category, but that's a good base. And considering what you have in front of a Landon Roberts now that you didn't have the first time around when he was with the organization, considering you have a Keanu Benton who is much more comfortable in his role, considering you have Derek Harmon, who is expected to take a huge leap in year 2, considering you have Y.A. Black, who's expected to have a really good season, considering you have Sebastian Joseph Day and you have a lot of depth in that defensive front, there's a good chance for Roberts to step in here and make an immediate and noticeable impact for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The concern with Landon Roberts is the same as ever. And there's a lot of people that immediately started talking about, well, will his pass coverage hold up? We don't trust his pass coverage. That remains to be seen. The good thing is you have 2 pretty solid linebackers in that department with Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen. But what Landon Roberts brings to this defense is a little bit of confidence, borderline cockiness, and a lot of physicality. And I think anybody who watched the Pittsburgh Steelers last year would admit to you and would agree with you if you said that's something that they could have used a lot more of. So excited to see that it's back with Landon Roberts. Excited to see him likely play in his first preseason action on Friday against the New York Jets. And just in general, excited to have E-Rob back with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Burgh Breakdown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 11. It's been a whirlwind of 11 episodes, and it's only going to get crazier as the Pirates push towards the playoffs, hopefully with the assistance of O'Neal Cruz and Konnor Griffin returning. The Steelers get ready for a season that is always going to be interesting, and the Pittsburgh Penguins draw closer to the opening of their training camp in mid-September. So that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you guys next time.